Good morning, good afternoon, whenever you're watching the video. We are going to do science. This is going to be science day 4. And if you want to get out your science book and follow along with me, that would be perfect because you have some assignments to do with this. And we are on page 93. That's where we left off, was 93. So we're talking about animal body parts today. We're in lesson 2. Again, we're on page 93 in your science books. All right, so fins help fish swim and balance. They also help fish steer. So think of it kind of like a rowboat. When you're sitting on a boat and you want to steer, you have to turn your oar a certain direction to kind of steer. Well, that's how fish are. They have those fins, and if they want to turn a certain way, they move their fin a certain way. And it's just all science. Like, that's how they were born. They know that that's how they need to turn directions, and that's how they swim. Suction cups help the frog climb and hold on. So think of a suction cup. You guys know what a suction cup is, right? It's kind of round, and you kind of get the back of it a little wet, and it sticks. And then you can hang stuff or whatever you need to do. Okay, and then that's what a frog has on the bottom of their feet, and it helps them to climb trees and to get out and to walk away, and to climb and to do whatever they need to do, find food, okay? And then an elephant can use its trunk to grab and lift. It can also use its trunk to drink water. Oops, sorry, realized you couldn't see that. An elephant is one of my favorite animals, and I think they're just so neat. Like, look at this. This trunk is being used kind of like a, like thumbs or like a hand for us, okay? All right, now I want you to think of an animal. Draw how it uses its body parts to move. So think of an animal and think of how it can use its body parts to move. And then I want you to be prepared to share when we get back to class. All right. So I gave you a couple minutes. If I didn't give you enough time, then go ahead and come back to this, or you can pause the video and then finish your drawing and then hit play. Okay, so the first type of animal we're going to talk about right now is going to be a mammal, and it's called by a hair. A mammal has hair or fur that covers its skin. Most mammal mothers give birth to live young. The young drinks milk from their mother's bodies. Find the sentence that tells the meaning of a mammal and draw a line under the sentence. So we're going to go back up to the highlighted word mammal. A mammal has hair or fur that covers its skin. So what is a mammal? Well, it's something that has hair or fur that covers its skin. Okay? All right, here's another fact about mammals. Mammals breathe air, so we have to use our lungs. We breathe air. Manatees rise to the top of water to breathe air. So manatees are mammals. Even though they live in water, they still need to come up and get air, just like a dolphin. Okay, a dolphin needs to come to the top to get air because they're not really a fish. They're a mammal because they breathe air, they don't have gills. They breathe above water. So they can stay underwater a lot longer than us, and then they have to come up and get air. Many mammals have legs to move. This antelope uses its legs to run fast. Okay? All right, and I apologize because I cannot get the whole page in the screen today. All right. Feathers. A bird has feathers that cover its skin. Birds have wings too. Feathers and wings help most, and we remember we underline most because of the penguins. The penguin was considered a bird, but it doesn't fly. Most birds fly. Birds use beaks to get food and build nests. Bird mothers lay eggs to have young. Not all birds can fly. A kiwi has feathers and wings, but it cannot fly. And I want you to also list a penguin, because a penguin is considered a bird, but it cannot fly. And I also want you to list an ostrich. because an ostrich has feathers and is considered a bird, but it cannot fly. So those are the 3 exceptions to birds. It's not all birds fly. Remember, most birds fly. Okay? And then it says, this pelican has wide wings. It uses its long, deep beak to scoop fish. So name the body covering for each group. So most mammals have hair or fur. And most birds have feathers and wings. Okay, so mammals have hair or fur, birds have feathers and wings. All right. All right, if I'm going too fast, pause the video to get that written down and then hit play again. All right, now we're talking about a reptile. So let's get started with a reptile. It says scale up. A reptile has dry skin covered with scales. Most reptiles walk on 4 legs. Most reptile mothers lay eggs. Most reptile mothers lay their eggs on land. Snakes are reptiles, but they do not have legs. Some snake mothers give birth to live young. Okay, so a reptile, I want you to underline this. What is a reptile? A reptile has dry skin covered with scales. Okay? And then most of them walk on 4 legs, but not all of them, as you just saw, because a snake doesn't walk on 4 legs, does it? Okay, it'd be kind of silly to see a snake with some legs. And then we have a tortoise. A tortoise has a hard shell. The shell helps keep it safe, so it walks on 4 legs. It is considered a reptile. All right. And then we have amphibian. Some people, including myself, sometimes get amphibians and reptiles confused. So if you're not the only one, if you get them confused. An amphibian lives in water and on land. Most amphibians have smooth, wet skin. They lay their eggs in water. Young amphibians live in the water. Most adult amphibians live on land. So think of it as a frog. Think of a frog. When a frog is a baby, it's called a tadpole, and it lives in the water. As soon as it's old enough, and it lives in the water and it has gills. And then those gills go away and they have lungs, which means they need to live on land. Because we talked a couple lessons ago, the difference between lungs and gills. Lungs are people who breathe on things that breathe on land, and then gills are things that breathe in water. So a frog ends up having both during its life. So we're going to underline this. Amphibian lives in water and on land. That means that they spend about 50% of their life on land and 50% of their life on water. Okay, so they're in water a lot more than things like mammals, but that doesn't mean that they can necessarily breathe underwater. They just spend a lot of time in there. All right, this toad is an amphibian, but it has rough, bumpy skin. Its strong back legs help it jump. And then we have a newt. This newt is an amphibian. It has smooth, wet skin. All right, so right where each group lays its eggs. So reptiles. Most reptile mothers lay eggs. Most reptile mothers lay eggs on land. And then this is really cool. I think this is really cool. So reptiles mostly live on land, but they can go in and out of water, some of them, okay? And amphibians live on land and water, and they lay their eggs in water. Okay, so you'll see that a frog or a newt, they all lay their eggs in water. And then when they're first born, they can swim in the water and they have gills and they can breathe underwater. And then when they become an adult, they have lungs and they live mostly on land. Kind of cool, huh? All right, next 2 pages, and then that'll be our lesson for today. So now we're talking about fish. Fish live in water and take in oxygen through gills. So they are all in water all the time. A fish does not live on land. Just like you and I, if we go in the water, we have lungs. We can breathe underwater sort of by holding our breath. We're not really actually breathing underwater, right? We can go in water and we survive, okay? But we have to come up for air. A fish lives and breathes and survives in water. So if they come out of water, they can survive for a couple of minutes because they can hold their breath like we can, but then they need to go back in water so that they can breathe. So it's the opposite of us. We need to come out of water so we can breathe. They need to go in water so they can breathe. Fish live in water and take in oxygen through gills. Fins help fish swim and balance. Most fish have scales. Most fish lay eggs. So we're going to underline fish live in water and take in oxygen through gills, and then we're going to put a square, or I guess it's more of a rectangle, around gills. So I want you to remember that fish use gills to breathe. All right, then we have two types of fish here. We have a Moorish fish, Moorish Idles fish, and we have a betta. Bettas are always really fun and pretty fish. Moorish Idles are better, and bettas are fish. They lay eggs in water. And then down here, sharks are fish, but they give live birth to their young. So a dolphin is a mammal because it has a little bit of hair, but it also gets its air from land. It has to come up every so many minutes to breathe, and they give live birth. A shark is a fish, and it gives live birth, but it doesn't have to come up for air. It lives underwater all the time. So it's kind of cool. It can be confusing. See, that's why people get insects and mammals and amphibians, all kinds, and reptiles confused because there's always like different animals that are the exception to that family. And this is going to be our last page for today. Snug as a bug. An insect has 3 body parts and 6 legs. It also has a hard outer body covering, but no bones. Most insects live on land. Many insects can fly. One part of an insect is its head. Where is the head on these insects? We have a head here, and we have the head here. All right, we're going to underline. Insect has 3 body parts and 6 legs. Okay. All right, now, right where each group lives. So fish live in the water. And insects live on land. Okay. All right, so feel free to pause the video at any time and go back to what you need to, all right? And I will be more than happy to answer any questions if we're confused about anything, okay? So other than that, I will see you tomorrow for science.